The sun hangs low in the sky as you walk along the sidewalk, the pavement warm underfoot and the world bustling around you. You pass by a group of people huddled together, their chatter rising and falling like the breeze itself. Among them, your eyes catch a woman walking alone, her gait unmistakable, even from a distance. She's a Marine. You know this without a doubt, even though she's wearing civilian clothes. You can tell by the way she moves, her posture. There's an unmistakable discipline in her every step, something that can't be erased, not even by time. But what catches your attention isn't just her aura of authority or the unwavering rhythm in her walk. It's the fact that her legs don't seem to bend the way they should, and there's an artificial, clinical gleam to her prosthetics. She's a disabled Marine. And yet, despite the visible reminder of the combat wounds that reshaped her body, she walks with the same air of confidence as if the world were still at her feet, unchallenged by the scars of her past. You can't help but wonder how she's managed to rebuild herself, how she carries herself with such grace. Was it the same determination that once kept her grounded in the military's toughest training, or had she learned something deeper, something more profound in the years since her service? Minutes later, as she passes by, a group of civilians make subtle but not so discreet comments. "She must have gone through hell," one says, eyeing her legs. Another mutters something about lost causes, a lazy judgment of people who, in their minds, no longer fit the standard. But you know deep down, these people have no idea what she's truly capable of. Then you hear a faint but confident voice, a challenge. The Marine has stopped walking and turned towards the group of civilians. The words come out sharp, but not unkind. "You think you can do better? Let's see if you're up for it." It's clear now. She isn't just a symbol of struggle. She's a challenge, too. The air shifts. There's no hesitation in her eyes. She doesn't look angry, just resolute. You find yourself wondering what drove her to this point, this seemingly casual moment of confrontation, and how quickly the lines between vulnerability and power can blur in an instant. The SEAL is standing a few paces away, eyes still trained on the Marine. At first, he doesn't say anything. He simply observes. He's been in the military for long enough to know that looks can be deceiving. Years of working alongside all kinds of warriors have taught him not to judge people too quickly, especially not by what's visible on the surface. But still, there's a part of him that can't help but question her abilities. She's obviously been through something that took part of her body from her, and yet here she is, standing tall, unaffected by the world's gaze. She doesn't even flinch at the slight whispers from the crowd that follow her as she walks past. "Marine," he mutters under his breath, sizing her up. He can't help but feel the old instinct stirring. They are warriors, both of them, though in different ways. He's been through hell in his own right. But the nature of his work, SEAL Team 6 Special Forces, has taught him to constantly measure strength by a certain standard. Physical ability, mental toughness, agility, endurance. All those traits that over time become more important than any medal or patch you wear. But this Marine, standing tall with her prosthetic legs, is a wild card. She doesn't fit the mold that he's been trained to respect. There's a part of him that wants to turn away, dismiss it as nothing more than a brief moment of misguided bravado, a woman caught up in her own trauma. After all, what would someone like her be able to do in a situation where real strength is tested? Still, he can't shake the feeling that something's different about her, and that's when it happens. Her challenge. Her sharp, measured words are like a spark to dry kindling. You hear it clearly now. "You think you can do better? Let's see if you're up for it." A strange tension hangs in the air. The SEAL blinks once, then twice, before stepping forward, intrigued. His professional instincts shift immediately. He's heard of similar stunts in the past, people trying to prove themselves or one-up others, but something in her challenge feels real. It doesn't feel like a flippant remark. It's a test, and she's daring him to take it. There's no arrogance in her voice, no need for validation. Just a raw, unfiltered desire to show that she's still in the game, even when the world might have decided she isn't. For a moment he hesitates. There's a silent battle in his mind. Should he engage? Should he take the bait? It's hard to admit, but he feels a flicker of doubt. Was there something more to her than just her prosthetic legs? Without a word, he steps closer, sizing her up even more intently now. His initial thoughts swirl in his head, but as he stands in front of her, he notices the sheer calm in her demeanor. It's unlike any of the soldiers or civilians he's encountered before. The doubt in his chest begins to give way to something else, a challenge of his own. "All right," he replies, his tone cool but respectful. "What do you have in mind?" He's ready to play her game, to test her, to see if the stories he's heard about soldiers coming back from the brink are true. As she explains the nature of her challenge, you watch closely. Her words are matter of fact, a quiet confidence dripping from every sentence. It's not about proving something to the world, it seems. No, this is for her. This is about the Marine showing herself what she's still capable of, even though she's walked through hell and come out on the other side, with more scars than she cares to count. She challenges him to a simple, albeit intense, physical test. A race through an obstacle course, the kind she used to run back when she had both legs, before everything changed. It's nothing too complex, but the complexity isn't in the obstacles themselves. It's in how the Marine has to navigate them, how she'll face every hurdle with a body that no longer moves the way it once did. Her speed, precision and strength have been altered, yet they are still there. They have simply been adapted, reshaped, reborn into something more resilient. He nods, already calculating in his mind. This isn't just any race, this is a test of willpower, not just strength. He knows from experience that when it comes to obstacles, the mind can be just as powerful, if not more, than the body. But he can't deny neither nagging that has been quietly festering at the back of his mind. She's at a disadvantage. There's no question about that. What can someone with prosthetics possibly bring to the table? Surely, even the most determined Marine can't defy the laws of physics. But he doesn't voice his doubts aloud. He can't afford to. Not with so much on the line. As they approach the start of the course, the group of onlookers grows larger. You can feel the collective anticipation. People love a spectacle, especially one where they expect the underdog to fail. They're expecting her to fall flat, to trip, to prove their assumptions right. But they don't know what she's made of. And neither does he. They line up at the start of the obstacle course. She's still calm, steady in a way that contrasts sharply with the bubbling tension in his chest. The whistle blows, and with a sharp exhale, both of them spring into motion. The race begins with a sudden burst of movement, but the Marine doesn't waste energy. You can see the way she's calculating each step, each movement, making sure her prosthetics don't become a disadvantage. It's a beautiful dance of precision, an internal battle as much as an external one. For a moment, you forget the fact that her legs are artificial, that she's facing obstacles with every move. Her confidence radiates in a way that, for a second, you can almost convince yourself that she's not even trying. You hear the SEAL's feet pounding behind her, his steady rhythm a contrast to her careful steps. He's still fast, the natural athleticism of a seasoned soldier evident with each stride. You can see the slight smirk forming at the corner of his mouth as he prepares to close the gap between them. He's sizing up the challenge, convinced that he has the upper hand. He's spent years training for this kind of test, this kind of race. No one can outrun a SEAL, right? But then, the Marine reaches the first obstacle, a wall that's about 5 feet tall, smooth and slick, the kind of challenge that most people would struggle with. She takes a breath, adjusts her prosthetic leg, and without hesitating, she vaults herself up the wall, using the edge to leverage herself over. There's no panic, no frantic effort. Her muscles, both real and mechanical, move in perfect harmony as she effortlessly clears the obstacle. The SEAL pauses. He doesn't stop entirely, but you see the brief flicker of shock in his eyes. He had expected her to struggle here, maybe even fail. But she's over it in seconds, her movement fluid, deliberate. And suddenly the doubts he'd clung to begin to unravel, thread by thread. Maybe this wouldn't be as easy as he thought. She doesn't look back, but you can almost sense the quiet determination in her eyes as she races to the next challenge, a series of tires laid flat on the ground. You see her carefully place each foot, using the stability of her prosthetics to her advantage. It's not quick, not the way the SEAL would navigate them, but it's steady, calculated, and before long, she's on the other side, continuing the race without breaking her pace. The SEAL is still catching up, but he's no longer focused entirely on the course. His eyes keep flicking to her, to the way she handles herself. There's a growing sense of respect stirring inside him, one he'd tried to suppress. Every move she makes is a challenge to everything he's known about limits, about the capacity of the human spirit, especially when confronted by an obstacle. He has to admit it. He's intrigued. This Marine, in her own way, is showing him that strength is measured in more than just physical endurance. The next challenge is a set of ropes to climb, suspended a few feet above the ground. The SEAL charges forward, muscles taut and powerful as he swings from one rope to the next, easily clearing the section with the speed of a man accustomed to tough, unrelenting training. He's gaining on her. But as he nears the ropes, something catches his eye. The Marine, instead of relying solely on the ropes, uses her prosthetics to create leverage, pushing herself upward with an uncanny efficiency. She's not climbing in the same way, but she's climbing nonetheless. It's slower, yes, but with a unique style that keeps her moving. The SEAL hurries to catch up, but a part of him starts to hesitate. He can see the sweat on her brow, the small but telling tremor in her hands as she grips the rope. But there's no quit in her eyes, no defeat. She's moving forward, however slowly, never pausing, never hesitating to try again. It's this refusal to accept that she can't that stirs something deep inside him, something he hasn't felt in years, humility. For all his years of elite training, he's now face to face with a different kind of toughness, one that defies his expectations. They reach the final obstacle, a mud pit. The SEAL surges ahead, leaping over the water with the grace of a panther, while the Marine watches the distance between them narrow with each passing second. She doesn't rush, doesn't try to mimic his speed. Instead, she chooses her next step carefully, calculating how best to use her prosthetics to keep her balanced and steady. Every movement counts. She's methodical and unyielding in her approach. As they cross the finish line, he's already there, chest heaving with effort, but he's watching her, waiting. She's just behind, her pace slower but steady. When she crosses the line, there's no fanfare, no loud cheering, just the quiet exhale of both competitors, the mutual understanding that something deeper has just unfolded. For a moment, the SEAL stands still, absorbing the significance of what just happened. He can't help but feel that his entire perception of strength has shifted. The Marine hasn't just completed the course. She's redefined what strength means in a way that no physical measurement or training ever could. And it hits him in a profound way. She's not a disabled Marine. She's a Marine. Period. He's about to say something, acknowledge her performance in some way, but she beats him to it. "You were pretty quick out there," she says, her voice light but carrying a weight of experience. "But I had you on that rope challenge, didn't I?" He chuckles, finally admitting what he's been avoiding. "You sure did." He extends his hand to her, his respect clear now in a way it hadn't been before. She looks at it for a moment, then accepts it with a firm shake. There's no lingering pride in her smile, no sense of victory, just a quiet acknowledgement that this race wasn't about defeating him. It was about something far more personal. She's done it for herself, and that's what makes it all the more powerful. There's a heavy silence hanging between them as they catch their breath, but the moment isn't awkward. It's something else, something deeper, something that has changed both of them in ways they won't fully understand just yet. The SEAL can't help but reflect on the race, on how quickly his assumptions about her were proven wrong, how easily he was willing to dismiss her as just another veteran with a disability. He's seen his fair share of war injuries, of people trying to pick themselves up again after being broken, but nothing had prepared him for this. Nothing had prepared him for how someone could reclaim their strength in such a quiet, defiant way. The Marine's eyes meet his, her face relaxed but focused. "You know," she says, almost offhandedly, "most people think I'm a charity case." She laughs softly, but there's a trace of bitterness in her tone. "They think I can't do the things I used to do. They think I'm a reminder of something they don't want to face." The SEAL's jaw tightens as he hears her words. He wants to apologize, wants to tell her how wrong he was, how much he'd misjudged her. But somehow, it doesn't feel like it's his place. He feels small in that moment, realizing that the world, in its many ways, had likely been treating her like that for much longer than he could imagine. He hadn't seen the mental battle she fights every single day, the battle that goes beyond prosthetics or physical recovery. "You're not a charity case," he finally says, his voice low but firm, the words carrying weight. "You're a warrior." She looks at him, her expression softening, but she doesn't say anything. Instead, she looks back at the course, her gaze distant for a moment. The race wasn't the end of it for her. No, the hardest part had always been navigating life after the battlefield, after losing not just parts of her body, but pieces of her identity too. And the world, in all its kindness and cruelty, doesn't always make it easy. She had learned to cope with people's assumptions, but that didn't make them easier to bear. The SEAL senses that now. He's beginning to understand the weight she carries, not just the physical weight of her prosthetics, but the invisible burdens that come with being a disabled veteran. He'd been so focused on the idea of strength being a visible thing, something you could measure with speed or muscle, but now he realizes that strength can also be a quiet, steady force, something that endures long after the world's applause has faded. "I didn't think you'd finish that last obstacle," he admits, almost sheepishly. "I thought you'd slow down. I thought you'd falter." His eyes meet hers. "But you didn't. You never did." She shrugs, looking down at her legs for a moment. "It's not about winning, you know," she says, her voice calm, almost contemplative. "It's about showing up. Every day, even when the world thinks you can't. That's the real test." Her words hang in the air, simple yet profound. There's a sense of wisdom there that comes from years of struggle, from overcoming the odds when no one else believes you can. The SEAL feels it then, a shift in his perception. He's been training to be the best, to push through every obstacle, but in her, he sees a different kind of strength, one that doesn't rely on physical prowess alone, but on something much deeper, much more personal. She's not just fighting for herself, she's fighting for the belief that you can be more than the limitations imposed on you. She continues, her voice steady but full of an unspoken strength. "I know what it's like to be underestimated. Every day people expect less from me because of what happened, because of these." She gestures towards her prosthetics, but there's no anger in her eyes, only a quiet resolve. "But the real fight isn't against the people who don't understand. It's against yourself. It's about not letting those doubts creep in and take over, not letting anyone else define what you're capable of, not even your own reflection." The SEAL nods slowly, absorbing her words. He knows what it's like to have his own doubts, to wonder if he's truly living up to the legacy of the men he's trained with. But the idea that her battle was so much bigger than anything he could have imagined, it makes him feel small in comparison. He spent so much of his life training for physical excellence, for combat, for survival, and here she is, showing him that real strength isn't always about brute force. It's about resilience. It's about pushing through the days when everything feels impossible and still finding the will to move forward. The race might have been over, but the lesson she'd taught him was just beginning to settle in. "You've given me a lot to think about," he says finally, his voice carrying a mix of respect and gratitude. She smiles softly, but it's not a triumphant smile. It's the smile of someone who knows that the battle is far from over, that there will be more obstacles ahead, more people who don't believe in her, more times when she'll have to prove herself. But it's a smile that says she's ready for all of it, because she knows the fight isn't over until she says it is. "That's the idea," she replies, her tone light, almost teasing, but there's a warmth in her eyes now. "Just because the world doesn't see you the way you want them to doesn't mean you stop. You keep pushing, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." There's something in her words that hits him harder than anything else. He doesn't know if he'll ever fully understand the journey she's walked, but he's starting to grasp just how much strength it takes to live it, day after day. "You keep pushing," he repeats to himself, the words echoing in his mind long after they've parted ways. It's the kind of lesson you can't forget, the kind of lesson that sticks with you, in a way that changes everything about how you view strength, life, and the people around you. The days that follow the race aren't marked by any grand fanfare or awards. The SEAL returns to his usual routine, But something about the interaction lingers with him. There's a subtle shift in his perspective, one that hasn't completely faded. He still trains hard, pushing himself in the ways he always has, but now every set of push-ups, every sprint, every obstacle feels a little different. They don't just test his physical limits anymore. They force him to reconsider his view of strength. Strength isn't just about what you can lift or how far you can run. It's about how you carry yourself when the world expects you to fall. The Marine, for all her quiet resilience, has become a silent mentor to him. He hasn't seen her again since that day, but her words echo in his mind. Just because the world doesn't see you the way you want them to, doesn't mean you stop. You keep pushing. Every time his muscles burn, every time his body begs him to quit, he hears her voice, steady, unwavering. It's not just about the physical race anymore. It's about the bigger, more unspoken race of life, where obstacles come in many forms. Some are tangible, like a wall or a rope. Others are internal, like self-doubt or the constant pressure to prove your worth to others. Meanwhile, news of the impromptu race spreads through the local community. The interaction between the SEAL and the Marine becomes the subject of conversation among veterans, civilians, and even the military press. They don't make headlines in the way wars or military operations do, but the story becomes a quiet symbol, a metaphor for the strength veterans find in the face of adversity. The way the Marine, despite everything she's been through, could still stand tall and challenge the world, and how the SEAL, the ultimate symbol of military toughness, was humbled by it. Veterans across the country start sharing their own stories of resilience. Some, like the Marine, have physical scars from their time in service. Others carry emotional scars that are invisible to the world. The ripple effect grows as more people reflect on the true nature of strength, how it's defined, how it's often misjudged, and how it's so much more than what meets the eye. Social media plays a role in this newfound visibility. Veterans begin sharing their own stories of overcoming personal struggles, whether related to their service or not. As people from all walks of life take to the internet to speak their truth. They share the struggles they've faced with disabilities, with PTSD, with the emotional toll that service has taken on them. The story of the Marine and the SEAL becomes a catalyst for a larger conversation about resilience, about what it means to be a warrior, not just in battle but in life. But it's not all positive. The Marine's challenge to the SEAL sparks a divisive conversation too. Some argue that it's disrespectful to glorify a physical challenge that reinforces the idea that veterans need to constantly prove themselves, that the strength to survive a difficult circumstance is what defines them. We're more than just soldiers, one veteran writes. We don't need to prove our worth over and over again. We fought for this country so we could live, not to be constantly judged by how well we perform. Others, however, feel that the Marines' challenge was a reflection of how veterans often have to push back against a world that underestimates them. They see it as a necessary act of defiance, a reminder that despite the invisible battles, veterans continue to fight, not for validation from others, but for the validation of their own resilience. The debate rages on, but one thing is certain. The story of the Marine and the SEAL has forced people to think. It has forced them to reassess what strength really means, how it should be measured, and who gets to decide who's worthy of being strong. As the week draws to a close, the SEAL finds himself returning to the very obstacle course where he faced off with the Marine. He runs it again, but this time, it's not about competition. It's not about proving he's faster or stronger. It's about understanding. It's about confronting his own doubts, pushing past them, and coming to terms with the fact that strength doesn't always look the way you expect it to. As he approaches the last obstacle, he pauses, breathless, and thinks of her. The Marine. Her quiet strength lingers in his thoughts. She didn't just show him the limits of his own physical abilities. She showed him the power of perseverance, of refusing to accept a life defined by what you've lost, of continuing to fight every day for something greater than yourself. He feels a deep, profound respect for her, but more than that, he feels grateful. Grateful for the lesson that came without words, just actions, just a challenge and a race. The SEAL finishes the course faster than he did the first time, but when he reaches the end, there's no sense of victory. There's only the understanding that real strength isn't about who crosses the line first or who does it best. It's about who refuses to give up, no matter the odds, no matter how many times they're knocked down. It's about showing up, every single day, and continuing to push forward. He stands at the end of the course, looking out at the open field, reflecting on everything that led him to this moment. He's learned that the strongest people aren't always the loudest or the fastest. They're the ones who have fought the hardest battles, both seen and unseen. And that's the kind of strength that deserves respect. The Marine, wherever she is, has made her mark on him, on so many others, and he knows now that it's the kind of mark that never fades. It's a reminder that true strength doesn't ask for attention. It simply exists. Weeks pass, and life begins to settle back into its usual rhythm, but there's a lingering shift in the way the SEAL moves through the world. His interactions are different now. He listens more, speaks less, and when he engages with others, there's a deeper sense of empathy in his eyes. It's almost as if the story of the Marine has opened his eyes to the complexities of people, especially veterans. It's one thing to recognize someone as a soldier, as someone who has served, but it's another thing entirely to understand what that person has endured, not just during their service, but in the years after. The stories are endless, you realize, if you only take the time to listen. Everywhere he goes, he hears fragments of tales, sometimes spoken in hushed tones, other times with the quiet dignity of people who've carried the weight of their experiences long after their tours ended. Stories of physical rehabilitation, mental battles with PTSD, and the never-ending effort to adapt to a world that doesn't always understand them. He's even heard veterans talking about how they often feel disconnected from the very community they fought to protect, a feeling of being sidelined or forgotten after their service. And yet, here's this woman, the Marine, the one he had underestimated. She isn't just another story. She's a testament to the fact that despite everything, every injury, every hardship, there's an inherent power within each person to overcome, to keep moving forward. Her story, like so many others, isn't just about fighting external battles. It's about fighting the internal ones, the ones that no one sees, the ones that don't have a trophy at the end. A few months later, he's sitting in a veterans group meeting when someone mentions her name. It's a casual remark at first, something that passes by without much fanfare, but it catches his attention nonetheless. Anyone ever hear about the Marine who challenged that SEAL to the obstacle race? One of the veterans asks with a chuckle. Talk about showing what real grit is. Others nod, sharing stories of how they've seen veterans push themselves past their limits, whether physically or mentally, and how inspiring those moments can be. It's clear now that the Marines' actions have sparked a broader discussion about resilience, about strength, and about how veterans continually redefine what it means to be a warrior. The SEAL feels the weight of the conversation shift as he speaks up, his voice calm but grounded in respect. "I was there," he admits, his words hanging in the air. "I saw her do it. She's the real deal. She showed me what strength really means." The room falls quiet for a moment. Some of the veterans look at him with curiosity, a few exchanging glances as they process the admission. It's rare to see a man like the SEAL speak with such sincerity, especially when it comes to someone who has physically been through what the Marine has endured. But there's no doubt in anyone's mind that he means it. "I thought I knew what strength was," he continues, "but she taught me something I never expected to learn." In that room, the conversation deepens. Veterans begin to share more about their own struggles, both the visible and invisible ones. They talk about the toll that service takes on the body and the mind, how it's not just about what you can do physically, but what you do when you feel like you can't go on anymore. They discuss the importance of finding purpose after returning home, and the quiet strength it takes to carve out a new life when everything you once knew is gone. There's a comfort in knowing that they're not alone, that they don't have to fight these battles in silence. The more they talk, the more they realize that strength doesn't always mean charging into battle with weapons in hand. Sometimes it means surviving a battle that no one else can see. It means learning to live with your scars, both physical and mental, and still finding a way to thrive. In the weeks that follow, the SEAL keeps in touch with the other veterans. He listens to their stories, asks questions, and offers support where he can. He's learning more than he ever expected to about the power of community, the importance of sharing experiences, and the strength that lies in vulnerability. The Marine's influence continues to ripple out, not just in the SEAL's life, but in the lives of others who were touched by her example. The Marine herself becomes something of a symbol, though she would never claim that title. She's not out seeking attention or accolades. She's simply living her life, showing up every day, facing down her challenges with unwavering determination. She's a reminder to everyone around her that strength isn't just about surviving. It's about living fully, in spite of everything that's been taken from you. In the months following that day, the SEAL sees the Marine again, this time by accident at a local veteran event. She's standing by herself, her posture as disciplined as ever, her eyes scanning the room as though she's quietly observing. When their gazes meet, he smiles and approaches her, his respect for her growing with every step. "You know," he begins, "I never thought I'd be the one to learn something from a race, but I guess I was wrong." She smirks, the corners of her lips curling up. "You're not the first," she says with a chuckle, "and you won't be the last." He laughs, but there's a deeper respect in his voice now. "What you did that day, it changed things for me. I didn't realize how much I was missing in my own understanding of strength." She nods, her gaze softening. "It's not about being the strongest person in the room," she says, her words low but filled with meaning. "It's about being the one who keeps showing up no matter what." As they talk, the room buzzes with the energy of veterans reconnecting, sharing stories of their own trials and triumphs. The conversation flows freely, and for a moment it feels like a family. A collective of people who understand what it means to fight and survive, who understand that the battle doesn't end when you leave the service. It's a lifelong journey. The SEAL leaves the event that evening with a sense of peace he didn't expect. He understands now that strength doesn't come in a uniform package. It's not something you can define with a set of standards or expectations. True strength lies in the ability to adapt, to push through when the odds are stacked against you, and to keep fighting for a purpose even when everything seems lost. And he knows, as he walks into the cool night air, that he will never forget the lesson that Marine taught him. The lesson that strength, in its purest form, is about showing up day after day and continuing to move forward, no matter the odds.